Good leaders don't just act on impulse. They respond with intention. And how we handle toxic people says a lot about who we are, not just who they are. Toxic people are everywhere, at work, in our families, even among our friends. They bring negativity, drain our energy, and if we're not mindful, they drag us down to their level. But wise people, those who truly grasp leadership, growth, and success, deal with toxic individuals differently. Let me share a story. I once knew a young leader, smart, capable, and highly motivated, but he had one major issue. He constantly got thrown off track by a single toxic team member. This person gossiped, resisted change, and made everything revolve around themselves. Every time this happened, the leader reacted. He got annoyed, argued, and allowed this toxic person to affect his thoughts, choices, and overall mindset. Until one day, something changed. He had a realization. Toxic people don't actually steal power. We hand it over to them. Power is a strange concept. Many people think it's something others snatch from us, something taken by force or manipulation. But in reality, in most situations, power is something we give away, often without realizing it. And this is especially true when dealing with toxic individuals. Toxic people crave control. They use manipulation, they provoke, and they feed off the emotional reactions of those around them. They stir drama, create division, and often leave others feeling drained, upset, or confused. But those who understand emotional intelligence know this. Toxic people don't really have power unless we hand it to them. Think about the last time you dealt with someone toxic. Maybe it was a coworker who always criticized you no matter what. Maybe it was a friend who always played the victim, turning every situation into something about them. Or maybe it was a family member who knew exactly how to push your buttons and make you feel unworthy. How did you respond? Did you argue? Did you defend yourself endlessly? Did you spend hours thinking about what happened, imagining different outcomes or better comebacks? If so, you gave them power. Because power isn't just about having control, it's about influence. It's about how much space someone takes up in your mind, how much they affect your mood, and how much they influence what you do. The moment we let a toxic person control how we feel, shape how we think, or decide how we act, we've handed over power they never really had in the first place. Smart people know this. They don't let themselves get dragged into arguments that lead nowhere. They don't spend their energy trying to explain themselves to people who don't care to understand. They don't emotionally respond to every sarcastic remark, every insult, or every attempt to knock them off course. Instead, they choose where their energy goes. One of the best things we can do when facing toxic people is to pause. Don't react. Don't get pulled in. Just pause. Because in that small moment of silence, we take back our control. We remind ourselves that we're not required to play their game. We don't have to argue, explain, or defend. We don't have to prove anything to someone who isn't honestly trying to understand us. Now, this doesn't mean we pretend everything is okay. It doesn't mean we tolerate poor behavior or act like problems don't exist. It means we learn to pick our battles. It means we realize that not every insult deserves a comeback, not every disagreement needs to become a war, and not every toxic person deserves a piece of our attention. Toxic people crave reactions. They feed on emotional responses. They want to see you angry, upset, or thrown off because it gives them the illusion of control. But when you stay calm, when you don't give them what they're after, they lose their grip. Their strategies stop working. That's why people who understand toxic behavior stay intentional. They don't waste time with meaningless fights. They set strong boundaries. They focus on their personal growth rather than trying to fix someone else's broken ways. Most importantly, they remind themselves constantly, I control my energy. Power isn't something that can just be grabbed from us. It's something we allow. The moment we stop giving toxic people what they want, the reactions, the attention, the control, they lose their influence over us. We're not freeing ourselves by changing them, we're freeing ourselves by changing how we deal with them. That's real strength. That's wisdom in action. That's true power. Toxic people exist in many areas of life: offices, homes, social groups, and even friendships. They criticize, blame, manipulate, and spread drama wherever they go. Many people believe that with the right words, enough kindness, or extra effort, they can make a toxic person change, but people who understand emotional maturity know that it doesn't work that way. You can't change someone who doesn't want to change, but you can change how you react. And this understanding brings peace. It takes away the pressure to fix people who have no interest in being fixed. It saves you from the emotional exhaustion of trying to explain yourself over and over to someone who never listens. One of the biggest mistakes people make when facing toxicity is investing time and energy into people who won't grow. Maybe it's a friend who always turns conversations into a crisis. Maybe it's someone whose reactions always tear down your peace. Maybe it's a relative who constantly puts you down, always sees the negative, and never lifts you up. We tell ourselves that if we just try harder, explain it better, or care a little more, they'll finally get it. But usually, they don't. That I would say is my beginnings. Smart people see this clearly. They stop holding on to false hope. They stop expecting someone to change when their actions have shown time and again who they really are. They don't get fooled by fake apologies or short-term improvements that vanish quickly. Instead, they take ownership of their response. And the most powerful response to toxic behavior is not reacting at all. People who spread toxicity thrive on your emotional reactions. They enjoy seeing you upset. It gives them a sense of control. But when you remain steady, when you don't give them a response thereafter, you keep your power. That doesn't mean you let people treat you poorly. It doesn't mean you pretend nothing is wrong. It means you learn to protect your energy. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every fight is worth your involvement. Not every person deserves your time and focus. This is where boundaries come in. When dealing with toxic individuals, clear boundaries are a must. Maybe it's keeping conversations short with someone who always brings negativity. Maybe it's not picking up calls from a friend who only spreads drama. Maybe it's choosing not to argue with a family member who constantly dismisses your views. Boundaries aren't about being cold or rude. They're about defending your peace and mental space. Another powerful tool is emotional detachment. People with self-awareness learn not to take the words or actions of toxic individuals personally. They understand that bad behavior says more about the other person than it does about them. They refuse to let someone else's bitterness define their self-worth. They stop measuring their value based on how toxic people treat them. Emotional detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring enough for your own well-being that you stop letting others pull you into their emotional chaos. It takes time and practice, but it gives you a sense of freedom. It allows you to choose peace over conflict and clarity over confusion. It helps you avoid battles that drain your spirit and keeps your energy focused on what matters: growth, purpose, and joy. In the end, we don't control others. We can't force them to treat us better or act more kindly, but we can choose who we allow into our emotional space. We can decide how much influence someone has over our thoughts, our feelings, and our choices. Wise people don't waste their lives trying to fix what isn't theirs to fix. They accept people for who they are, but also set limits on how much those people can impact their lives. They shift their attention to what they can control, their own reactions, the boundaries they create, and the energy they protect. And through that, they find peace. They leave behind the chaos, the arguments, and the emotional roller coaster. They build a life that's not just calmer, but more fulfilling, more meaningful, and fully their own.